Welcome to the Remax Real Estate Insight Show. Are you thinking of selling your home now or in the future? If so, you're probably trying to determine how much your home is worth or how much you should sell it for. Enter the Comparative Market Analysis, or CMA. We're going to take a look at exactly what this tool is, why it's important to sellers, what this analysis should include, and how buyers can benefit as well. And it's back to school time, so we take a look at the partnership between Remax and Children's Miracle Network, and that includes the Remax Communication Preschool program and how this special program through Beaumont Children helps young kids with speech and language impairments. Joining us are Bill Boucher, he's an associate with Remax Classic in Bloomfield Hills, Sarah Gretza, director with CMN Hospitals, and Pam Belante, marketing director with Remax of Southeastern Michigan. All of this is coming up next on the Remax Real Estate Insight Show on 760 WJR. Welcome to the Remax Real Estate Insight Show. I'm your host, Jeanette Schneider. So you're thinking of selling your home. One of the biggest factors to determine is, well, how much can you sell it for? What price should we list it at? If you've done your research, it will tell you that a realtor can provide you with a comparative market analysis. But what exactly is that? And you may be thinking, what does an agent know that I can't find online? So joining me to talk about all this is Bill Boucher. He is an agent with Remax Classic in Bloomfield Hills. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure as always. And I do say, I think that in my view, pricing a home, it's kind of a combination of art and science, the way I look at it, because you've got data that you can pull from,
Sure.
and there's kind of the science part, but the market's always somewhat changing, somewhat what moving. So enter, you as an agent in a comparative market analysis. Sometimes this is referred to as a CMA. I think some people may even hear it more loosely referred to as comps, if you will.
Right.
Can you explain what a comparative market analysis is?
Well, it is a little science, and it's also a little razzle-dazzle because, of course, we plug in our marketing features. We want you to know about our experience and background. We also want you to know about our firm, especially if we're with one of the larger companies, how solid they are, how long they've been around. So there's always that component. But the market analysis itself is where I sit down and literally pull comparable properties as close to the potential listing that I'm looking at. If I can't compare ranches to colonials, I have to compare ranches to ranches. And I have to look at 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranches if that's what I'm dealing with.
Okay.
Garage and basements can be optional, but they affect the value of the property. But all that aside, because that's the most important component, but you also have to look at the economic situation for the particular market that you're dealing with, too.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, if the market is good, are houses selling quickly? At what price range is this property going to fall into, and how popular is that price range in the common market at that particular moment? Because even right now, as we're going through some changes today, you'll see different responses when a new property goes on the market, because some price ranges are much more popular than others right now. And
I'm not going on a limb, I don't think, to say that the more popular price ranges, and it's I guess a generalized way of saying it is, first-time houses. So, lower price points, mid-price points, those tend to move a little faster right now, I'm guessing, than more the luxury price point.
Absolutely. If you're under 150, those homes go very quickly, especially if they're clean, well-priced. Those are the things that are the most important to any listing. But once you get over 200 and 250, they start to slow down. Okay. And then the $400,000 to $700,000, $800,000 price range is even slower. And then the $1 million properties, slower yet.
Slower. Well, and it makes sense because the pool of potential buyers for those tends to, I think, whittle down the higher price point you get.
Oh, yeah, of course. But also it's the current market and what's happening, because we saw the higher end properties moving a lot faster 2 and 3 years ago than they're moving today.
Okay. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more, I think, about the market as a whole. So when you're saying that I like the phrase razzle-dazzle, that's probably better than art and science. And you're taking a look at the properties that are out there, and you're trying to do a true comparison, whether it's number of bedrooms to number of baths to ranch versus, a different style home. Are you looking at the sold data on these homes? Is that what kind of you're looking at? Or are you looking at actives that are out there as well right now?
I pull actives, pendings, and solds. The conditional and unconditionally withdrawn properties I'm not too concerned about, unless the seller says they'd like to see that too. Active markets, I need to know what's my competition. What are they priced at? What do they look like? What do they offer that my listing does not offer? And how am I going to price according to that? And I think that's the most important factor. I pull the pendings because those properties sold at the price that they're listed at. So now you can't find out, of course, what the sale price is because nobody's going to reveal that fact until it closes. But that is good data because now this one caught a buyer and a buyer made an offer and the offer was accepted.
So there's something there.
There is something there. And then the sold properties are obvious. You have to have solds to compare. I like to have a minimum of 3. Try to have at least 3 actives and 3 solds. And if I can get pendings, I do my best.
Okay. So if I'm a seller and, I guess, or as a homeowner and I'm preparing to put a home on the market, how important is kind of this tool, if you will, this analysis that you as a realtor can bring to the table? How important is that to me as a potential seller?
It's extremely important. I can't emphasize that enough because sellers are very savvy, and they go out and they start looking at websites to see what they think the house is worth. And
they go out on their own?
Oh, yes. And they know, that's the price that they're going to get for their property. And they also have a mindset of what the property is worth. All of us think we know what our home is worth. So that's their mindset. Now, frequently I'm asked the question, what do you think my house is worth while I'm on the initial meeting with the seller? I never answer that question. I just say, you know what? I really don't want to answer that question because I don't want to set up your expectations. Let me go back and pull the data I need to pull to give you an educated opinion on what we're talking about. Well, such and such a site says my house is worth $225. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'll take that into consideration. And the other thing, when I'm pulling the market analysis and preparing it, I also go into those websites to see what they say. And it's very interesting sometimes the different figures they've got versus what I'm coming up with.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking with Bill Boucher. He is from Remax Classic in Bloomfield Hills about comparative market analysis, often referred to as a CMA. Later, we're going to be talking about the Remax Communication Preschool Program. It's our month of miracles, and we take a look inside this special preschool that helps children with speech and language impairments. So stay tuned for more of the Remax Real Estate Insight Show here on 760 WJR. Listening to the Remax Real Estate Insight Show, and we're talking about comparative market analysis, often referred to as a CMA. These are reports and data that a realtor uses to help their clients determine the price the market might bear when selling their home. I'm your host, Jeanette Schneider, and joining me once again to talk about this is Bill Boucher. He is an agent with Remax Classic in Bloomfield Hills. So we were talking about these tools, and you were saying right before the break is you don't like to, kind of quote a price for a home the first time you step into it. You're coming to take a look at the lay of the land, go back and do your research, on the comparables in the marketplace, which leads me to ask a question. Is this service something that pretty much any professional realtor does? Or is that something that, homeowners should be asking their agents about? Well,
I would certainly hope that every agent would do this because I think there's a lot more information when you do an analysis. An analysis is an analysis, okay, is taking the time to go through the figures, the facts, the information regarding the property and coming up with an educated price. If an agent was standing in my living room and said, "Oh, yeah, it's worth $225," I would say, "What are you basing that on?" "Well, experience." "Okay, but do you know?"
Right.
"Okay, what about the market? What about the other homes in the neighborhood?" "Oh, no, I know the area. Don't worry, it's worth $225." I would not want to list with that agent. I want to see something in black and white that says, this is what we've got. These are the facts that you're going to be dealing with as a listing, as a seller. And this is what you need to know before you put the property on the market. Because if I don't have your property sold within a certain length of time, you're going to be on the phone to me saying, what's going on?
Right.
You're not doing your job.
No. And if you priced it too high, what they don't want to have you then come back saying is, I will need a price reduction. I mean, because realistically, nobody wants that to be happening.
That is the hardest thing for me to do, is call somebody, because that means that we didn't hit it. You know, and it's kind of embarrassing for me. But there are situations where you have no choice.
Sure. So I guess you alluded to this before also, that sellers are savvy. And today there's a lot of information that's available for any of us, whether we're on the buying side, the selling side. There's a lot of information that is out there that consumers can take a look at. We're not going to, name names, but it rhymes with Zestimate, or something like that. I mean, they can go out there and, they can take a look at things. So what do you have access to? Why is there a discrepancy? Because it seems like their information never kind of rings true to what's actually happening in the marketplace. Is your information more accurate, more timely? What is it that makes a realtor's data better?
Two good words, accurate and timely, which is what it is. I'm going into the multiple listing service where those homes are actually bought and sold and listed. Full information, details on the properties, in most cases, multiple photographs of the interior of the property as well as the exterior. The square footage, the room sizes, the updates, all that information is going to affect the overall value of the property. I need to know those things. Because if I'm dealing with one house that has no updates, and in fact, I can give you a situation, property built, say, 1950, that a seller wants to sell. It's a 3-bedroom ranch with 1 bath and a 2-car garage. No updates since 1950. Okay, they are out there. They're all over southeastern Michigan. And 2 doors down, a house sold 3 months ago, and it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home, full basement and a 2-car garage, but it had granite counters and cherry cabinets and stainless steel appliances, and they had completely redone the basement and had it professionally finished with drywall and ceiling and carpet. That home is going to be worth more than the home that I'm looking at.
Sure.
And I need to be able to explain that to the seller, because once they hear the price, and here was one of my biggest problems, once they see the price, they shut down. They glass over. That's either you've insulted them or you've made them ecstatically happy.
Either way, mentally you've lost them.
I have lost them. So I take every opportunity before I reveal that price, if I can, to get that information in front of them so that they see what we're dealing with and what's going to benefit them the most. As a seller's agent, I have a fiduciary obligation to do the very best job that I can for that seller. And part of that means knowing my market, knowing what I'm doing, and providing them with the information so that they can make an educated decision on where we're going to list that property. Well,
I mean, and I think you hit, and this is the reason why folks, turn to agents and realtors for the expertise, that you are bringing to the table. So you were talking about doing all of this, taking a look at doing the comparables on bedrooms and baths and square footage and size and features and updates and all of these things. And it seems to me that, boy, kind of sounds like what an appraisal does. So... But it's not an appraisal, because if I'm getting financing, I still need an appraisal done. So what's the difference between what you're doing, and an appraisal? Because on the surface, they kind of sound similar.
They are very similar, but we are not appraisers, okay? And I want to make sure I say that.
He's not an appraiser. We've got that in there.
Thank you. We do our very best, based on the knowledge that we have as experienced real estate agents out in the market, to come up with a figure for a property based on what we know, what we see. Appraisers do price adjustments, and they have almost like a set scale. If a home has a fireplace, does that add or subtract from the price? If the house has a 2-car versus a 2.5-car garage, does that add or subtract from the price? Appraisers know this, and for them it is a science, and they're very precise. And there are good and bad appraisers, of course. There are good and bad real estate agents.
Right.
But the bottom line is that the appraisers go to much more length as far as the amenities, the accessories, and so forth that a property has versus what it doesn't have. We do the best guess we can based on the knowledge that we have, the comparables that are in front of us, and our own experience and know-how, and our knowledge of the current market activity.
Well, that's what I was going to get to, because I think appraisals kind of taken a look to some degree in the rearview mirror, with no disrespect intent. I mean, they're looking at the sales that happen and, like you said, putting the price point on different features.
Right.
in your world with the CMA and the pricing of a home is you're having to track what's the trend. I can tell what's sold. I know what happened in the past, but I also have to kind of know where the market's, is it trending up? With every house that gets listed, is the asking price more? And in a different market, is the price going down? And you have to be in tune with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or are the prices flat? Are they not doing anything at this particular time? So you're going to be fulfilling a need for a buyer, but do you have buyers to fulfill that need?
Right.
That's what it boils down to.
Well, speaking of buyers, because we often, I think, view CMA's comparative market analysis as a seller's tool, as a tool that's used with the seller, and certainly it is. But buyers can also benefit from these as well, correct?
I am so glad you brought that up. Absolutely. I do a market analysis for every buyer. When they're preparing to write an offer, when they say, Bill, I want to make an offer on this property, first thing, we got to sit down, we have to pull market analysis. I have to at least get a sense of what the property is worth before you make an offer. Should you offer less than list? Should you offer list? Or should you offer more than list? Also, we have to find out if we can, and some agents will tell and some won't, are there other offers? Are we competing? Because if we're competing, then we have to gear the whole offer process a little differently.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. Market we have right now, homes, by and large, have been selling relatively quickly these last few years. The market's starting to be a little bit different right now. Does your job get easier or more difficult when there's not as much activity in the market to kind of figure out what's going on?
It's getting more difficult. The market is changing as we speak. In fact, I almost got into an argument with an agent in my office the other day on this same topic because I was saying the market's changing and we need to prepare. And he's saying, I'm getting multiple offers. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. Well, on what kind of properties? Well, 50 to 150,000. Okay, but what about the $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 properties? Are they moving as fast? No. So yeah, we are going through a change right now, and I think it's not a bad change. We're not going to see another recession. We're not going to see foreclosures and so forth, but the market's going to slow, and it's going to kind of get more of a what I hate to use this term, but normal market. I think 2020 is probably going to be slower than 2019. Okay. There will be fewer listings and fewer buys. We need to keep an eye on the Federal Reserve through the fall into the winter because we want to see if they're going to be changing interest rates. Because right now, great time to buy. Interest rates couldn't be lower.
Right.
But
that doesn't seem to be driving folks in mass to buy right now.
No, it's not, which is kind of a backward flip on what typically would be happening. But I think we need to keep an eye on the politicians, Washington in particular. Also, we want to watch the Federal Reserve and see what they do with those interest rates.
And see what they're up to.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much to Bill Boucher from Remax Classic for stopping by to talk about comparative market analysis and current market conditions and how buyers and sellers can use this tool together with their agent to interpret what's happening in their market. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Remax Real Estate Insight Show here on 760 WJR. You are listening to the Remax Real Estate Insight Show, and I'm your host, Jeanette Schneider. It's back to school time, and this makes it the perfect time to take an opportunity to share with you some information about how Remax partners with Children's Miracle Network, and specifically our support of a local preschool program with Beaumont Children's. This unique preschool provides specially designed environment to help kids with speech and language impairments. So if you have a child or you know of one that struggles with speech and communication, what we're about to talk about could be very important for you to hear. Joining me for a discussion is Sarah Gretza. She's director with Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and Pam Belante, the marketing director with Remax of Southeastern Michigan. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, we're going to start with you and kind of the Children's Miracle Network Hospitals angle. Locally, the hospital affiliated with Children's Miracle Network is Beaumont Children's. Can you just share a little bit about how CMN Network, as an organization, supports local hospitals, in our case, Beaumont Children's?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Children's Miracle Network Hospitals is a national nonprofit organization that partners with local hospitals, 170 local hospitals.
Oh, wow.
So we, like you said, Beaumont Children's is the one that we have here in Southeast Michigan. We're the only Children's Miracle Network hospital in the area. So we're able to raise dollars, and all the dollars raised locally stay local, and we're able to help the hospital in ways that generally is above and beyond the hospital's normal budget.
Because, I mean, hospitals and healthcare as a whole faces a lot of budget constraints and a lot of financial challenges. And so being affiliated with Children's Miracle Network, the ability to be with an organization that raises awareness and money and funds puts them in a good position then.
Absolutely. And we have so many fantastic national partners that partner with us locally, Remax being one of our favorites. So we're really lucky to have that designation and be able to serve almost 150,000 kids annually at Beaumont Children's.
That's a lot of kids.
Absolutely.
And it's something we don't think about on a day-to-day basis, I think, unless you happen to have a child that's at Beaumont Children's. You know, I mean, it's something that, we can drive to and from work every day and not think a lot about it, which is why we're talking about it. So you mentioned corporate sponsors, of which Remax is one. And I just, I'm thinking for the audience that's out there, you may recognize Children's Miracle Network by the paper balloons you see. They're white with the yellow and red on them. I know Ace Hardware, Speedway, some other
Costco,
corporate sponsors, Costco. I know what IHOP and DQ, typically have some days where you can go in and purchase a product and, maybe they give it to you for free, but they ask for a donation. And then there's Remax. So Pam, let's talk a little bit about how Remax approaches this and how our financial support, how it happens and how it's a little different.
Sure. So I think in comparison to some of the other partners that you had just mentioned, which in my opinion are more retail based, right? So those type of partners are looking to their customers for donations, for fundraising,
right?
For fundraising dollars, whether it's at the cash register, at checkout, or perhaps proceeds, from their purchases.
Right.
A portion of that goes to Children's Miracle Network, which is wonderful. I mean, that's certainly awesome.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing by any means, but with Remax it's different because we're not actually reaching out to our clients or customers for those donations. They are actually coming from our agents themselves. So usually or for the most part, our agents make a donation on a per transaction basis. Okay. A lot of them actually pledge a certain dollar amount per every closing, to make those donations. And it's a win-win that way because they're almost making a donation on the client's behalf, and the clients are happy to do that closing because they know a portion of that the agent's going to donate, to CMN based on
a certain amount to CMN. Yeah.
Right. And we have an online donation system called the Miracle Home System. So super easy for our agents to make those donations. Participate, super easy. And I think the other thing that we were saying that makes the partnership unique is those dollars are kept local. And that way our agents know exactly where those dollars are going. They're right in their backyard. Their clients also can appreciate that those, dollars are being kept local as well.
I think that's it's an important factor, because I think sometimes with nonprofits and charities, and I get that that's maybe the way it has to work. The money gets funneled to a national or a corporate, headquarters, if you will, and then a portion somehow trickles back, to the local community. But in our case, that's not at all what's happening. Oh. Anything that is raised by Remax stays here locally, and you both have alluded to that.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. That's all the dollars raised with Children's Miracle Network. They all stay local in the location that they're raised.
Alrighty. Yeah. So we're talking with Sarah Gretza, Director of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and Pam Belante, Marketing Director with Remax of Southeastern Michigan. So Sarah, this is going to be back to you. I want to talk a little bit more about the preschool, and it's actually called the Remax Communication Preschool Program. This is really unique, and I think there's a lot of folks that aren't aware that this exists. Can you explain more about the preschool itself?
Absolutely. So the Remax Communication Preschool is a part of Beaumont Children's, and it was actually the first hospital-based preschool of its kind. And it services kids ages 3 to 6 that have been diagnosed with language difficulties. So there are folks that just have trouble kind of articulating certain sounds, certain words, all the way to kids that are actually nonverbal. So we work with them we have trained therapists occupational therapists that are there and are able to actually assist kids and work with them to get them to be able to communicate just like all of us do all the time.
So we say preschool. Of course, that to me conjures up an image, of a traditional preschool with, tiny tables and small little chairs and, craft time and play time and all of those types of things. Is that a fair assessment of what, if I were to, peek in the window, and of course I've been there, but I mean, is that what the preschools, I don't take that back. I don't peek in the windows. I've been there before. But is that what the preschool is like?
It looks a lot like a regular preschool. But when you go in and they utilize a lot of the same tools like circle time or play time, snack time, everything is geared towards making sure kids are getting all of the practice that they need in speaking and communicating. So yes, if you peek in the windows, you will see a very similar preschool to the one that you traditionally would think of. But while they're in there doing the work, it's all specifically focused around the way that they're speaking and the way that they're communicating.
And you mentioned there's speech professionals that
Absolutely.
are in there is part of it, which is what really does make this unique. But while you're honing and specifically addressing a certain concern, the kids still get to experience what kind of their peers are, in other preschools. So I think it's the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. They're able to engage with their peers, with each other. And so they're learning while, just kind of interacting the way that we all do. And that preschool also offers one-on-one therapy as well, if that's necessary for the child. So each child is assessed separately, even though it's a group of 12. 12 is the limit that they'll have for the classes, but each child is assessed individually.
Okay. Yeah. And the funds that Remax donates, it really helps to fund, for lack of a better word, a scholarship program. And can you tell us a little bit about how that works on your end as far as how it's administered and funded and how it's determined what parent or which kids are going to get what?
Absolutely. So because of the generous donations from Remax, we are able actually to take a discount off of all of the tuition for everybody. And then based on the parent's ability to pay, so there's a small application just to see where they are financially. If they are unable to pay, then the preschool will offer that scholarship and they'll be able to actually utilize the school at free of charge. And is
it fair to say that everybody coming through there gets a little something?
Gets a little bit of a discount, absolutely. Yeah.
And just real quick, we're going to continue the conversation after the break, but for those that might be listening, is there a good place that they can go and kind of check in to get more information?
Absolutely. The best place to start is beaumont.org/CMN. You'll be able to find out all the information, not only about the preschool, but about all of the programs that we offer at Beaumont Children's.
Okay, so that was Beaumont Children's. Say it again.
No problem. Beaumont.org.
Beaumont.org/CMN. And that CMN stands for Children's Miracle Network. So we're talking with Sarah Gretza with Children's Miracle Network Hospitals and Pam Belante with Remax of Southeastern Michigan about the Remax Communication Preschool Program with Beaumont Children's. Like I said, after a short break, we're going to be taking up the assessment tools used at the preschools and other ways that Remax supports all of this. Now, the only thing that Remax agents enjoy more than supporting Children's Miracle Network is supporting buyers and sellers. Did you know that Remax agents help someone buy or sell a home every 30 seconds? That means right now, while you're listening to this, another buyer has found a home or a seller has sold theirs. Those results can only be done by experienced and professional agents. So if you're buying or selling a home, go to RemaxRealEstateInsights.com to look for properties or find an agent near you. We'll be right back with more of the Remax Real Estate Insight Show here on 760 WJR. Welcome back to the Remax Real Estate Insight Show. We're talking about the partnership between Remax and Children's Miracle Network as it's back to school time, and that includes preschools. And there's one very special preschool here locally you may not be aware of, and that's the Remax Communication Preschool at Beaumont Children's. While this is a short break from discussing specific real estate related topics that you normally hear, it's important to us because in any real estate transaction, communication is an extremely important aspect. The ability to communicate effectively, just in life in general, is imperative to having successful careers and meaningful relationships. So the Remax Communication Preschool Program, it helps kids that have speech and language impairments. It helps them to develop their communication skills, and it can make a huge difference, not just in their lives, but that of their parents as well. And back with me are Sarah Gretza. She's director with Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and Pam Belante. She's she's the marketing director with Remax of Southeastern Michigan. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the program. So before the break, Sarah, we were talking about the scholarship program that's available for the funds that Remax, donates. I'm assuming that when somebody shows up at your door, there's an assessment that's done to kind of determine, are they the right fit for the preschool? Is there a certain class, or do they need individualized care?
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so each child is individually assessed by a speech therapist. They will actually come in. They work with the child. They have different steps that they'll walk them through. They have different tools that they'll use to make sure to see where exactly the child fits. We have one of the really neat tools that we have that Remax assists us to get is it's basically, they call it the voice box, but looks a lot like an iPad, and this is for children that are nonverbal. They're able to just start push like a word, so you can say toy, and it'll start pulling up sentences, and it'll speak for them.
Oh, how cool!
Absolutely, and it's completely able to program. So you can put in people's if they have family members, you can put in their names, you can put in their siblings' names, and it'll start to be intuitive. And it'll start to literally talk for them. So I think you really hit on it earlier. When you are speech and communication is such an important part of everyday life. And I know as working in nonprofit and doing fundraising for a long time, how important it is to be able to communicate and to speak. And I'm very thankful to be able to do that. But with this preschool and with these tools that we bring them in, we're really giving kids an opportunity to really just be themselves, or as simple as be able to tell their parent if they're hurting or if they are hungry. This actually allows them to do that. And so it's just one of those really awesome things that we get the chance to be a part of.
Well, it does sound awesome, because, again, you take for granted, those of us, talking here today, you kind of take for granted the ability to do that without really even thinking about it. It's like breathing. You just do it.
Right.
But for, these kids, that's not exactly where they're at, and that certainly can impact them. So that's a really cool tool. Now, once they're in I guess let me take a step back, is if somebody's listening and they have a child who's exhibiting some challenges with speaking, language communication, can they just pick up and call you guys and come meet with the doctor? Or do they have to have a referral through someone else, like their own pediatrician or another specialist? What would be the best course of action for somebody listening?
That's a great question. So I would still go to that beaumont.org/CMN website. It'll have the phone number right on to the preschool, and you can call them directly, and they can give you the best next steps.
Okay. And then once I have once a child is in there, they've done an assessment, they've determined if they're the right fit for the program, maybe get them signed up, get some scholarship dollars, because we didn't touch on this, but insurance doesn't pay for people to go through the program. Is that a fair assessment, or does insurance sometimes pay?
Sometimes pays. It depends on, unfortunately, with everything, on what your insurance will cover. But that's the nice thing about this preschool. If insurance doesn't cover it, or if the family is unable because of the scholarship program, families are able to still attend.
Okay, so we've got a child in. And are there assessments then, or benchmarks along the way that the group is, kind of tracking each child to kind of know how they're progressing?
Absolutely. The great thing about that is that each child, even though it's a room of students, each child is individually assessed and then tracked throughout their progress, because every child's going to be different. And every single time, if they're hitting the benchmarks, then they can keep going. If not, sometimes kids stay longer. Sometimes kids will stay an extra semester or come back, just kind of depending on where they are. But they're able to do that because it is smaller class size.
Now, at some point, does the kid somewhat age out, since it's been a preschool, regardless of kind of where their development has gone? I mean, does it get to the point that they kind of just age out of this facility?
Absolutely. So the preschool is set up for kids 3 to 6. And then after that, once they have that final assessment, the parent as well as the therapist can then decide what the next steps are. Is it going on to kindergarten or to first grade, or is it maybe going to have the individual speech therapy as well?
Okay. Yeah. So in the position that you're in, Sarah, you get to meet and know, the parents and the kids, and she's smiling, her face is all lighting up. I mean, you get to meet all of them. That's the cool part of the job, for sure. Yes. I know Pam and we get to meet some of the parents and kids, because some of them make themselves very available, to come out and talk about the preschool at events that, that Remax agents do. Yeah. But from the parents' perspective, what do you hear? I mean, how does this impact lives?
I mean, just at the other day at one of the golf outings, I was speaking with Fran Watson. Her two both of her children have gone through the preschool. And she was just so thankful for what the preschool gave her son, Braylon. Braylon was really struggling to really communicate. And he's actually a part of our Dear Voice video. If you see him in that video, he's really struggling to get out a lot of words and pronounce them correctly. It literally gave him his voice. And so it's such a cool thing to see him now. He runs up, he hugs. He used to be really shy because he was uncomfortable about talking. And if you've ever met Braylon, he immediately just hugs you. Like there's no question, no hello, how are you? It's a hug. And that was because he now has that gift of communication. And she is just so thankful. Every time I see her, she's like, thank you again. And, and Braylon's been out of that school for a couple of years now. She's just really thankful. And Riley, his little sister, just finished up this year.
Oh, good to hear, because I didn't know that, because I am familiar with Braylon, and when we first met him, you couldn't get him to say 2 words.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put a microphone in front of him, he'd put his head down. He didn't want anything to do with it. And the last time I saw him, I think it was about a year ago at a golf outing, and rode the elevator up and down with him like 25 times because he was infatuated with that. But he was speaking, and it was really cool. Well, we're talking with Sarah Gretza from Children's Miracle Network Hospitals and Pam Belante with Remax. Now, Pam, Remax actually has a long history with Children's Miracle Network, and it started back in '92. I'm going to date myself a little and say I was there when the program launched, but it's been really cool to watch it grow. I know you're a champion of the program big time, and you work with a lot of what we call CMN ambassadors, and with different fundraising ideas and things of that nature. What are some of the things beyond the program you talked about where agents can just give and pledge a certain amount from their each commission check? What else are Remax agents doing to support this?
Yeah. So, I would like to say that, we are definitely committed to this partnership and to the preschool. So we do have some really wonderful agents and offices that actually go above and beyond, just making that pledge based on a closing. So, and Sarah mentioned the golf outings. I think over the last 2 weeks, we had, 2 golf outings. We've got one coming up next week. Yeah. And those golf outings do raise a lot of money. And they're not just the first time these offices have put these outings on. These are like their second annual or, third or fourth annual. Yeah. So definitely the golf outings. We did, one of our offices or agents did a Top Golf fundraising event. And at Christmas time, a lot of our offices like to do kind of cookies and photos with Santa, which is a great way to get their clients to come into the office, and, clients get to
keep track with them.
Keep in touch with their clients so that it's a feel good for their clients again, but they get to raise some money for CMN. And it's just, it works. It works very well.
It works all over the place. So we've got, summer's a great time for golf events. We had the Top Golf event back. I mean, and from time to time, if you listen to the show, somewhat consistently, from time to time we do talk about these events, especially if it's something where the public is invited. And this gave us a little bit of an opportunity to share more about the program as a whole, what we're doing, why we're doing this. And then when we do come up and say, hey, we do have openings for a golf event, or maybe in November, December, some Santa events, you understand why we're asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do know that consumers, if given the choice, would rather work with a company that, that does give back or is socially responsible for, socially responsible. So it is just a good way to kind of, make those connections with the community, and raise money at the same time.
And we're letting folks know that this is what we're doing, because I really believe